think I'll get things started. But yeah, welcome everyone for coming to the 29th call, the 20th of January SIP call. Yeah, I recognize some people are new, like Tig. So yeah, I'll run through what we tend to do on this call, just to give you a bit of context, how it fits in the grand scheme of things of SIP development. So today we don't have a specific topic, so it's going to be an open discussion, so anyone can raise anything. But usually I'll try and in some topics around some SIP development and just anything related to SIP. So in this session, we tend to do a bit of SIP status update. Yeah, a brief update from the big SIPs, SIP Stacks 2.1, but then there are many other sort of medium to SIPs sort of dotted around and in the pipeline or at early stage, and that's where this session comes in, where you can come and advocate for your SIP. You can advocate for your proposal. It doesn't have to be technical. It can be governance related. Juliet is working on a code of conduct SIP. So yeah, here is a session where we can be collaborative, where there's a lot of smart people in this room can help you. Yeah, so please join where you can, or just tune in and learn some development about the core Stacks blockchain technology works. And yeah, it's just sort of bring some light to the work that the core devs are doing as well. So yeah, so just to bring it back to the basics. So what is a SIP? SIP is essentially just a document that specifies what your improvement is, and it tends to live on the GitHub. It's almost like a form that you fill in, but with a lot of the specifications of your proposal. So you can find that on SIP.gov GitHub. So yeah, please visit. So just to give you an overview of where everything is at, we have lots of things at early stage in the pipeline. So things like Julia's code of conduct, Werner's SIP, which are sort of at the draft stage or just before the draft stage. And we have other things like safe token transfer. Also, SetZeus is working on non-custodial staking FT SIP. So yeah, we have other things too. So please come to this session. This is where you can chime in your feedback. Maybe you learn something from the altcoin world or whatever, or maybe you think there's something is not right or something can be better designed, and you can all submit all your comments either on this call or even on GitHub. So yeah, this session is is where everybody can work together and help develop each other's idea. Some of the SIPs at later stage, such as SIP 15, which is Stacks 2.1, and the writer SIP is SIP 20, all to be activated. The vote has already happened. We did it in December, November, so they all passed. Just waiting for some final testing from the core devs. When everything is ready, then you'll get officially ratified and activated. So this is sort of the landscape, if you like, where everything's at. We have lots of things at the later stage, lots of things at the early stage. Yeah, and I'll go into a little bit details of the status of some of them. So yeah, any questions? All good, cool. Okay, maybe Jude, if you don't mind, just giving a bit of update. So we're looking at end of sort of February sometime for the update. I don't know if anything has changed or yeah.
Yeah, it's sometime in February for the activation. The thing that's holding us back right now is we keep finding subtle incompatibilities between the 2.1 code and the 2.05 code. I think we've managed to iron out all of them now. We have to do, I think, one more just deep pass through the type checker. Last night, Bryce and Aaron had discovered a error that could result from an improper canonicalization of the trait representations that we use, which changes between 2.05 and 2.1. Just making sure that all works is the big thing here. I hope we can get RC3 out sometime today, because that verifies some of the more serious fixes that lead to an incompatibility with the 2.1 chain state and the 2.05 chain state will be fixed. But what the still to do on this, beyond that, we're going to migrate the mainline testnet to 2.1 and verify that that works. Today, I intend to do that privately, just with my own miner, to verify that the transition will work with the parameters that we intend to use. Once we're confident that it works privately, we can do it with the whole system. Once we're confident that that works, we can also, in parallel, test this on mainnet, like through a private local node, migrating to 2.1 on mainnet. So once we're happy with the migration paths and we're happy with the 2.1 series nodes keeping track with 2.05, we will merge the develop branch to the master branch, and that will be what locks in the activation height, barring any sort of future discovery of consensus and compatibilities. Bryce and Aaron, does that make sense to you?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So it sounds like February, end of Feb or something like that. Could it leak to March, do you think?
I hope not.
Okay.
I'm still hoping for early February, but I'm not sure we're going to meet that anymore just with the current discovery.
Okay. So it's maybe mid or something. Cool. Thank
You're
you
right.
so much.
I just want to apologize to everyone on this call for the delays. Our ethos here, because blockchains are mechanisms that represent wealth for that other people have. We consider it to be more important to make sure the system works properly and is well tested than trying to ship things on a time scale that would potentially render loss of funds to people. So it's a different mindset than you see in FANG companies where you can move fast and break things. Like here, you can't afford to break things, and that means that sometimes things get delayed.
Yeah, it's irreversible, right? So it has to be right.
Yeah, you have one shot to get it right. You have to get it right the first time.
Cool. I think it's expected to have some final testing, finding some things to improve or correct or bugs in the final testing. I think that's pretty normal. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, just want to make sure that we're all on the same page for expectations is all. I know that sometimes people complain on Twitter, when 2.1, when it's ready is the right answer.
Cool. Yeah, I just see Werner jumping. Amazing, because I'm just about to talk about his stuff. Werner, if you want to unmute. I was going to give a very quick summary of where Werner's at, because I've been sort of communicating with some of these people, because essentially, just to explain to everybody, we have many big SIPs that are sort of basically handled by the core devs, if you like. But we also have all these sort of smaller SIPs that could be done by the community, could be done by the core devs. And this year, we're trying to encourage these sort of community-generated SIP ideas. And this is where I'm trying to work with some community members to draft up some SIP ideas. And Werner has very, very kindly looked into the trade definition for extending tokens. And yeah, so the TLDR is that he has one draft ready, and the other one needs to be a separate SIP. But yeah, Werner, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, sure. I didn't have time to think about this before I got in, but it's okay. I think I have some interesting items to share, at least. First of all, when I started this, my focus was on, okay, let's get the marketplace trade standardized so we can at least put that in a follow-up BNS contract, for example. Then, for example, Friedger said, okay, let's try to get a more extensions in one SIP. The following discussion basically ended taking it apart again. So there will still be standard trait definitions to extend the token functions, but we would prefer to just put that in a table somewhere. Okay, these are the token standards we have: SIP 9, SIP 10, SIP 13, and you can and that you can see in that table, for example, these extensions are helpful to extend the token SIP 009 token or the 10 token or something like that. But we don't have to change the SIP process just to cover a standard that extends another standard, for example. We can just use the current SIP process. Now, what I did is I took I think the least contested part of what was in the current SIP and also the most demanded part, and that is the function for the marketplace. So for the non-custodial marketplace, there are a couple functions. I think we can abbreviate them with list in microstacks, buy in microstacks. That part I took out and put in one draft SIP. The other thing is, and that I think should be a follow-up to this, I think it should be standardized just because it's already being applied so much in the ecosystem. Although it's not the preferred standard we'd want for a marketplace. So I think we would want a more generalized function, one that will allow paying with any kind of token and not just stacks or microstacks in this case, but it's the same. And then I ran into a problem because I think I can write a standard or a draft standard, but I'm not that good when I can't copy the code from another repository. So I don't have code that is generalized for SIP 13 tokens. So I want to make the marketplace standard for that. And I did write up something that I think it should look like, more or less, based on everything that I did find on a generalized token trait for the marketplace. And that's what I put in. I'm not sure what number I put on it, but I have a draft in this topic, the topic that's on screen. So that's in the last post in this topic. There is one draft SIP. I called that SIP 011 for the buy in microstacks marketplace trait that is being applied around the ecosystem and started with the Megapond contract. And I see it in the standard contracts that Gamma.io deploys. And then the other part is the more generalized SIP for the marketplace functions that will allow buying and selling SIP 009, SIP 010, SIP 013 tokens, and buying them in one of those tokens, selling one of those tokens. And the idea is to have a single signature for anyone, any of those functions. I put some thoughts on that in the paper. In this topic, there's some, I think, very valuable discussion about that can show you why certain choices have been made so far. And what I would like to know is, does it make sense? So the last post I made, the splitting it up in two parts, does that make sense? And does it make sense to use the generalized interface for all those tokens or whatever I have in Clarity Code right now? because I'm most uncertain about that, because I don't think myself as a Clarity dev. I can do a little bit, but I don't know all the details. All right, back to you, Hero.
Well, I just had one question. I remember looking through your SIP earlier, and I appreciate you taking the time to write it all up. The question I had is I see from the notes here that you've spoken with Alex Arcadico and Stack Swaps about just trying to figure out like what the interfacing will look like between this trait and with existing marketplaces, both on chain and off chain. I'm trying to make sure that there's been due diligence there, because I know they can have strong opinions about like what they want the interface to look like for their own protection.
I would still want their input. So it's at the stage it's at now. I still want input from the big marketplaces. So Jamil already commented during the work, but I haven't heard, for example, from tradeport.xyz. So before we commit this to the cabs, I think it should have I should have had input from at least Jamil and someone from the other from Tradeport.
Yeah, you can. You don't have to let the SIP process block you though. Like one thing that you might be able to do with Jamil is like just set up a proof of concept to see how well it works in practice.
Yep.
The way these standards tend to go is like, people try end up converging on the same solution.
Yep, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thanks for taking this. Thanks for leading the charge on this. This is going to make things a lot easier for folks with tokens.
Yes, I think so too.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much, Werner. It's been amazing to see such a impactful SIP being proposed by the community. So yeah, if anybody else want to review or help out or propose a new SIP, yeah, please submit ideas. So yeah, thank you, Werner. And another one is the code of conduct, which I have asked Juliet where is that. So it's roughly, basically she wants more feedback from the community and added a bit of her draft before sort of making a formal proposal for the draft on GitHub. So this is also sort of taking a long slow, if you like. So yeah, if anybody has any comments, wanna chime in on how, like, this is about like who we are as a Stacks ecosystem or stacker. And she was asking like even question I saw on Twitter yesterday, like is Combeat Evil something a Stacks ethos? So I think she's sort of trying to ask some questions around this topic, and if you have any feedback to her, follow her on Twitter, write a comment on Stacks forum or GitHub. So yeah, so this is where people can chime in on the non-technical stuff, SIPs. So yeah, so this is ticking along, that's good. And I've asked Mark about this particular one. I think he's basically saying because they've had a lot of the resources redirect to Stack SIP on one. So this one will probably be expected in February. They can turn their attention to this. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about this, hopefully in February, March time. So yeah, so I just want to, because we don't have a topic planned for today, so just want to leave the floor open. So if anybody any questions about the recent effort of SIP editors or any of the SIPs being talked about today, or if anybody just got anything on their mind about the SIP process or anything to do with governance, so please unmute your mic and we can all discuss.
I was wondering actually one thing with the Stacks node, coming out and such. And I imagine that layers on top of the Bitcoin and Lightning and stuff as well, or that's the main intention. Is that all pretty much just, I think we want to increase it by 200% or something, was I think a request by someone. And that only really increases the node capacity by not really too much. And I was thinking that we should actually aim for like really huge numbers when it comes to adoption of people mining or running their own nodes, because I think that would really take the project a lot further as well, and even and strengthen the network as well. If we can find a way to almost incentivize people to actually do things kind of like the can't be evil, kind of also gives credence to, you can be good. So you could also run a node and, it doesn't take much power and does quite a lot for the network at the end of the day. I mean, maybe there's things like that we can try to incentivize for, I think, like just almost everyone, all the devs and stuff. If there's cheaper ways for us to acquire like hardware or even guides and stuff like that for people to pretty much implement on their own if they need to, I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's about it for on my mind currently.
One thought that comes to my mind is, Jude, maybe you can offer more details on that. On Mutu's idea of making the node implementation easier for spinning up, or more practical to spin up a node, a Stacks node. Yeah, he came here and talked about it a little bit, and he's working with Jesse JW on that too, whenever he has questions. But that's the one sort of thing related to what you're talking about that comes to my mind right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I just wanted to echo what Hero Gamer said. Like, that's definitely something that we're spending some cycles doing now, trying to just make it easier to spin up nodes. One thing that we could do in the service of this, like there's definitely code improvements that just make the process less painful. I think Muthu's main bottlenecks he keeps hitting is he ends up not provisioning enough hardware. But knowing how much provision in the first place would certainly have made that problem go away, if memory serves, just watching him tweet about it, which has been honestly very, very enlightening and helpful. And I hope he keeps doing it.
Yeah, I know when I put out documentation, I usually stick to the bare minimum of what hardware is required.
Right.
So if you try to scale that up, you're not going to have a good time.
I have a quick thought I'd like to share. This is Binay. Yesterday, I attended a developers workshop related to zero knowledge proof. This was hosted by Leo blockchain, and this was very interesting. And for the past few weeks, I've closely used Damos, which is a Nostr client in test flight. And also in the last couple of days, I saw Larry Slibra, Larry.btc post something about how to integrate .btc with Nostr. So bringing BNS name, zero knowledge to integrate privacy and using Nostr as a P2P messaging protocol. My question is like, what's possible there? What can we do to use .btc names with Nostr, and is it possible to do that in a private manner? So this is a open question. I just like to see, understand what's possible and what's not. What are the limitations with Stacks 2.1 upgrade and general discussion around those topics.
May I add a little bit on the topic?
Yes.
Because I talked to Larry about what he posted, and my question was, okay, can you make this a little bit easier for people who are not programmers, right? He understood the question, and I asked him, can we have a standard to make it easier also for anyone to implement this? He said, yes, I'd like to do that, but I'd like to have some idea of how this would work in practice. So he's basically, what I understood, he's testing things, right? So he's checking what's possible. So that's my first impression, at least. But he's definitely onto something.
I've only just very briefly looked at the Nostr GitHub page. Do they have a notion of usernames as it is, or is it just a public key identifier that they use?
It's only public keys. Nostr, at the base level, it's a JSON file that has 7 fields, and that's all. That's all it is. That's what the relays are transmitting across each other.
Okay, I mean, what I think Larry did, if I remember his post correctly, was he just found a way to put your Nostr identifier in the zone file for the name, right? Oh yeah, looks like Jay Wiley just said that. Okay, I mean, so I mean, in terms of like, you know, if this is something where you want to go, like, we can largely do this with like you know how btc.us exists. You register a username, you attach a website to your name, and then, you know, your username.btc.us resolves to your website. You could do something similar with Nostr. The same mechanisms would be in place. If someone wanted to fork at btc.us and make like a Nostr registration page instead of a website registration page, that would probably be a very small change to make happen. The other thing you'd want to do, though, is you probably want to take a Nostr client somewhere, fork it so it could resolve your BNS username to your Nostr public key. That doesn't sound like a very big challenge. It's just a matter of like hit up a Stacks node, given the BNS name, and, you know, pull out the zone file, look in the zone file for your Nostr public key, and if it exists, then great, you're done. You have the public key.
And is that something that will be public once you attach your BNS with your Nostr public key? So that's like one and done, and it's attached forever? Or can we do this in a dynamic way, like changing maybe new public key every time, or, you know, do it in a privacy protected manner? Is there a way to think of it? So
I'm not even sure how you would even go about doing this, because it sounds to me like if you wanted to attach a username to a public key, you want to be found.
Yeah, that part would be public, absolutely.
Okay.
As far as you know, dynamically updating it, yeah, you can do that, but, you know,
The history is still preserved, though.
Yeah, I'd have to see how that would work in practice. It could be a little messy to do it dynamically. You're just asking you know, you're changing the zone file a lot, basically.
Okay.
Right, but all the updates to the zone file are saved forever, though.
Yep.
Okay.
The other thing about this that I think opens up some further work is, you know, there could be some new applications built on Stacks that are absolutely grant worthy, as, you know, using this method of, you know, public keys tied into BNS. I'm thinking of things like, you know, chat applications and things like that. That could be interesting.
We in the effort of building SBTC, there is a new peer-to-peer service coming online that will be natively built into Stacks nodes that will allow you to attach bulk storage that is replicated within the Stacks peer-to-peer network to an arbitrary smart contract. So it's like saying your smart contract has a database, and the Stacks peers themselves host that database. All you got to do is find some people running Stacks nodes to just subscribe to it, so they maintain a replica for you. And that could be the basis for building things like what Jay Wiley says, like chat apps or social media or other applications where you want to have a peer-to-peer network, but you don't want to have to go solve the problem of going and building out the peer-to-peer network from scratch before you can do anything useful.
Yeah, that's some really interesting applications. Now that I'm thinking a little longer term about this.
I'd love to build a proof of concept for chat.
Yeah.
I see Raphael has a question about Atlas. This is a different thing from Atlas because unlike Atlas, you can do writes to this database like at line speed. You don't have to send a transaction each time. The only thing the smart contract is doing is just authorizing who can write data and how much they can write. And then behind the scenes, the nodes implement an eventual consistency gossip protocol to replicate the latest writes to everybody who subscribes. It's not public yet. I'm still writing it, but we need it for SBTC because what the stackers will do is they need to exchange a lot of cryptographic data with each other in order to calculate their private key shares in order to, in turn, generate the signatures over the PEG wallet. But in order for these stackers to first find each other, and then second of all, share this information, and third of all, share it in a way where they don't have to, if one of them crashes, they don't have to re-execute the expensive key generation process. We ended up needing to build a way for the Stacks peer network to just help them out, like to store some data off-chain on behalf of SBTC. It just so happens that the mechanism that does this is very easily generalized to work with any smart contract. Latency between nodes. So latency, I mean, it's similar to the block propagation logic. It's on the order of seconds or less.
Yeah, I'm just thinking more in terms of, you know, this pseudo database you're talking about that each node could have stored locally and how it would share that with other nodes around the world and what that would do to the latency requirements.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you would want to look at the subnetwork of nodes that replicate the database and, you know, try to figure out what the diameter of that network is. And that would tell you, it'll give you an estimate of like how fast it would take for messages to propagate. No, it would not be SQLite, Raphael. It's just a key value store right now, like blob of data and an identifier for the blob of data. But you can do what you want with that. You can build a file system on top of that. You can build a SQLite database on top of that. It's being built with the purpose of serving SBTC for now. But certainly there can be clients that give a better, you know, more programmer-friendly representation of this data beyond just, you know, store this blob of data to this chunk identifier.
I think you have to explain a little better what privacy preserved transaction means to you, Benaya.
So what I'm thinking is, for example, because the Stacks is a account-based model, so once you perform certain transaction under certain BNS or address, and if that ties to any other activities, this is kind of associated for the rest of the time as long as you continue to use those addresses. So is there a way that we can continue to use, okay, binay.btc, but I'll be able to do it in a way that there's intermediary steps that kind of anonymizes and then, you know, muddies the water in terms of identifying that I did that particular transaction. So something like that.
I mean, the answer in principle is yes. There could be a world in the future where the Clarity VM has functions for like verifying, like, I don't know, Plonk 16 proofs or ZK Stark proofs or things like that. The mechanisms by which you would achieve this, though, would probably look a lot like what you do in Ethereum today. You would have a separate network of proof generators that receive your transaction, and they prove that you the system followed the rules and changing people's balances, and they just submit a proof to the smart contract to verify that the execution took place faithfully, and that would allow you to deposit tokens into the prover's smart contract and then later withdraw them to a different address.
Okay, so it could be possible, but that would require the Clarity VM updates in the future?
It would.
Awesome.
We don't have an ETA for it yet, though, but it would, if we did take, this is something that, you know, the folks we talk about internally as well. So it'll probably happen like after the SBTC stuff, if it happens. And we're of course always welcome to, you know, look at PRs that add it. It's just right now we don't have any we don't have the personnel really to do this correctly because sorry, maybe we do. I haven't asked them yet, but we do have a couple cryptographers on staff now that could potentially make an implementation for us.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you for that update, Jude.
Yeah, I just want to mention that in case anybody doesn't know, like the core developer team has grown like dramatically, like from what I've seen. Benaya.
Yes. We got like 50 some people now.
Yeah, last year was some, but not this much. And Aaron is back, Pavitra is back. So I think, yeah, this year, yeah, it's a lot more. I think the team can push a lot more stuff through. But yeah. Cool. Anybody else? I got a question actually. Well, maybe two. A second one might be a slightly cheeky one, but the first one is a more about Werner stuff. So Werner has so it's just about like assigning SIP number, because he's in his SIP he was proposing maybe a SIP 11, and I went back and around the SIP 11 of I think it was from you. Catastrophe stuff, prevention stuff. That was, and I think you might have taken the number out. So I just wonder how it works with the Werner stuff. Is it appropriate to assign him SIP 11, or how would it best work?
So despite the fact that, sorry, I think I interrupted someone. What was that?
Oh, just coughing.
Okay. So despite the fact that SIP 11 exists, it's still a draft, so it can't actually claim 11. We just put 11 in place just so we had a name to refer to it by. If he wants to take 11, it's totally fine. Yeah, numbers are only assigned once they get accepted.
Werner, do you want SIP 11?
Yes.
I'm happy with SIP 11.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rules on the number. It just has to not be used already.
Yeah, that's also why I picked it. And I thought, chronologically, it makes sense to have it somewhere around there.
Yeah, cool. Sorted. Yeah, the second one is more of trying to understand, when do you think SBTC might launch? Are we looking like 4 months out or 9 months out? Is it some sort of end of year kind of thing, or?
I think internally we're looking at trying to get it out the door by end of Q2. Realistically, probably sometime in Q3, just because things tend to slip for reasons we can't anticipate. We're pushing hard to try to get an alpha testnet ready to go by the end of January. So it would. Go ahead.
So if it's end of Q3, then the voting might take place in Q3?
It probably wouldn't be end of Q3. It'd probably be like early Q3, like first couple of weeks. Like the difference between, we have a lot more people working on SBTC than on 2.1. Like there's already like 10 people whose full-time jobs is just to work on SBTC. I don't think we ever had that level of staffing for 2.1 at any point in time. So I'm more confident that we can execute on a quicker timeline for this. The other thing we're trying to do sooner rather than later is because SBTC is a much more targeted upgrade. Like it's not a grab bag of like 100 different features the way that 2.1 is. This is like, we're doing this one thing and we have a pretty good idea of how to do it. The workload is a lot smaller, and we have a plan this time around to make it so we have user testable prototypes while we're building the full system out. So end of January, what we're shooting for is there'll be a SBTC, like a mocked SBTC contract on mainnet that will let you peg in real Bitcoin and peg out your SBTC for real Bitcoin. But it will happen on the live mainnet. It will be the breaking changes that need to incentivize correct behavior will be slated for the subsequent hard fork. But there will be stacker signers that do the same sort of signing logic they would when the system is live. They will execute the Frost key generation, the Frost signature generation. There just needs to be a separate trusted process right now that looks at the Bitcoin blockchain for peg in and peg out requests and acts upon them the way that the Stacks nodes would all act upon them if the system was live. But the goal here is to create like a testable product where you can have the SIP10 SBTC token and it will be redeemable for Bitcoin. We just will have this bunch of caveats up front saying like, hey, look, like don't put too much in here. In fact, we're going to make sure you can't put that much in here. We're just going to ignore you if you try to do it. So, slated with all the warnings and such. The main purpose of this is just to make it so that, developers who want to get a head start building applications with it, they have something they can actually play with.
Cool. Thank you so much. Anybody else got any comments or feedback? If not, I'm gonna move on quickly so we can close it out. Okay. Awesome. So just for those new, and I know Tick is new, so I'm just going to mention it anyways. So we cover a range of things on this call, and anything SIP related, whether it's some voting mechanism, the ecosystem DAO, or a general SIP process, whether it's about Stack 2.1. Sometimes we talk about derivation path, and we talk about the governance process, which involves caps and SIP editors. And different SIP ideas like SIP transfer, SIP 19. Raphael has given a talk about that on this call, about the metadata. So yeah, or Stacks code of conduct. So we're trying to cover a range of different topics, whether it's from technical or non-technical. So just to give you a flavor of what we do on this call. So please join if you can, if you're free, or if you want to listen in. Yeah, thank you so much. And I will just give everybody a bit of update about SIP editor. It's a bit of a code for SIP editors, but I've been also in touch with many different people who are willing contributors to the SIP editing committee, SIP editors committee. And yeah, so they will be basically the first line of people who will be looking out for SIPs, getting the community more involved, reviewing the SIPs before it goes to the caps. They sort of act like there will be some people with technical capabilities. Raphael is one of them, but there's others. They'll be reviewing the actual SIP, vetting the SIPs drafts. We're going to try and have people who maybe can amplify the SIP process as well. So act as a welcomer and just sort of directing the right person to the right people. And we still have this session to sort of to advocate for people who the SIP author to advocate for their SIP or come and ask any questions. So yeah, so I'm actively putting people in place for this. So just want to give everybody a sort of a big update. And if anybody on this call or anybody hearing at home later the recording is interested in participating in the SIP process of being a SIP editor, please let me know. And just a sort of brief overview, the SIP editor, the consideration advisory board, and the SIP committee sort of act as three key groups in reviewing the whole SIP process and the decision-making process from the beginning to the end. And the first step is the SIP editor, and then goes to CAP, and then goes to this steering committee. So these are the sort of people on the list. We have Werner, Algorithm, Dotman, the Crossfire, Cargo, various people, and I pulled in a couple of people from Hero too. Raphael, Kyle is sort of helping too. Yannick, yeah, different people, different community members, people with SIP editing author experience at Raphael. So if you're interested in helping this group to shape, to be the future vetting guys, please let me know. But yeah, I'll be working with these people to get them more up to speed, get them to start doing stuff, helping stuff, and maybe putting some workshop to help people to train up to be these SIP editors. So if you have any advice or feedback, please let me know. Yeah, so this is sort of a bit of update from me. And these are the people in the CAPS, which is the next level up, who makes a decision process. Lots of people are in the process to help making the decision. And I'll look to try and find more non-technical SIPs so that we can potentially activate the diversity cap and ethics cap more officially. Yeah, so if anybody got any questions, let me know. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, Hiro. Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thank you, Hiro. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tix. Tix is on the list too for the SIP editor. He's very kindly offered to help. So yeah, I look forward to working with you on that.
Yeah, me too. All right. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.